Hi, this video is for 11th grade. My webcam is not working, unfortunately, so I'm just going to talk through the screen. So today our topic is journeys, and we're really looking at the Lewis and Clark expedition, but I also did a little bit on how I've been following the Vendée Globe race with my dad over Thanksgiving, and so I just talked a little bit about that, which I'll skip for the video and just go straight to the slides that matter for the lesson. Our terms for today were conflict and plot, and then we did a little bit of reading from chapter 6. The goal is to read to page 136 in the book today, or if you don't have the paper book, until you get to 60% online. The stem for today, we're still doing appositives, at least through this week. The stem is the central struggle of the book. So let's take a look at the slides, starting at slide 90, and go through the idea of journeys. Again, I started with this Thanksgiving aside about how I've been following this solo boat race, and it's happening now. The French takeoff point is here. Anyone can join, but it just happens to be a lot of French sailors, and it can be men or women who are in this race, and they take off from there, point there, and go across the world, around the world, here below South America, and back up to France. And it's like 30 people and skippers doing this, and it's been pretty inspiring to watch, so it took me to this idea of the settlement of America. No one really knew how vast this territory was when America began. So many hoped for a quick trip to the Pacific, where they could trade more easily and cheaply with China and India. And my takeaway is this: the world is vaster than we can imagine. It was then, and it is now. And just trying to get into the sensibility of settlers on the West inspires me into thinking how they had to reconceive of the land. They needed to find the new world not by sea, but by walking across the continent. And this has a mirror in some other parts of world history, like the Silk Road, where these vast networks have to develop across land instead of sea. But a lot of those early explorers didn't really know that when they got here. Lewis and Clark didn't know either. They really hoped that they could sail their way across America. It wasn't until 1806, when they got back from their journey, that Americans realized just how vast and difficult it would be to go west. In fact, those early maps of the area of Virginia and Jamestown were just flat wrong in how they thought the land would be structured. So in this, just so you could orient yourself, Charlottesville would be here, this second I right about. So you've got the Chesapeake here, which is right, and then you have all these rivers, and there's the James River coming up here. But then it hits the Appalachians, and look, only a few hundred miles behind that, they thought was the Sea of China and the Indies, or the Pacific Ocean. Then over here, the far right, there is this sort of mystical fantasy that there could be a single river that you would find, and it would take you across the whole of the continent, the Northwest Passage. Well, that was not true, and none of this, in fact, in terms of the scope of the waters, bore out. The map has west here at the top, and then east down here at the bottom. I say, look how quick they thought the journey would be. It's crazy stuff. It wasn't until the late 1700s that England developed a system for longitude. Longitude would be what you need to measure just how far across things would be from what's called Greenwich Mean Time, or where the center of the world is, at least in terms of time. They have the latitude right. Latitude is the lines that go, if you can imagine the globe in your mind, across the globe. So they understood where things were in that sense. They just didn't understand where the vertical lines would be. By the 1700s, they'd figured it out, and this is a map that we can see of the interior, and it's pretty accurate in many ways, and stops when it gets out to Kentucky and all through here. Illinois, some of those regions are beginning to be drawn, but so much of this they just don't understand. So Jefferson buys the Louisiana Purchase as president and tasks his personal assistant, Meriwether Lewis, to just figure this out, tackle the West, record everything he sees. Jefferson wanted Lewis to establish good relationships with the Indians and to bring back things that he found. Well, Lewis realized this was going to be quite a task, so he asked his friend William Clark to help, and that is why it's called the Lewis and Clark Expedition, just the word for the voyage, the journey. They would have seen it as a voyage, as a boat voyage, because Jefferson and everybody wanted to know if there was an easy way to sail across America, and there was not. But they did try. Here they are in their skipper, or their keelboat, on the Missouri River, and they do end up boating much of the voyage, and they are on rivers for a lot of it, but it's just not nearly the journey they thought it would be, especially the last few hundred miles through all sorts of really difficult passages on rivers and the great falls that they hit towards the end of their journey. So here it is, their voyage up north through the Dakotas, over Montana, and then out finally to Oregon, Washington State. And I've heard it said that if you're a junior in high school out there, so much of your history curriculum is this Lewis and Clark expedition, because it's such a huge part of why Washington and Oregon are states. It's hard for us over here in Virginia to imagine that. We study it, and we should. Lewis and Clark brought all of their artifacts back here to Charlottesville, to Monticello, to give them to Thomas Jefferson. So we're really the beginning of the journey in many ways, even if it started in St. Louis. Amazingly, only 2 people die, 1 crew member who had a health issue, and 1 American Indian who Lewis killed when he was taking horses from the crew. Lewis and Clark returned in 1806 and report a few things. 1, no, you can't sail across this continent. 2, there are many friendly Indian tribes, and then there are tribes who are really wary of the explorers. 3, there are millions of buffalo, 60 million of these shaggy creatures, wherever they go. And lastly, the American West is huge. It's beautiful and it's dangerous. Just with all of the conflicts out in nature, not to mention running into suspicious Indian tribes, and by that I mean Indian tribes who are suspicious of these new people. The story keeps getting retold, though. In so many ways, the stories of the West, they are this story, and we are reading one of them right now. So one of our words of the day is conflict. You can add that to your big Google Doc. Conflict is a struggle or a clash between opposing forces. Can be between people, can be forces within someone, internal conflict, or they can be between a person and nature or natural elements. There can also be other conflicts that don't contain in themselves nicely here, like between robots and people. There's ways to get creative. The conflicts that I imagine Lewis and Clark experienced on their journey are largely this last one, but certainly there's a case to be made that they felt all 3. And that would also coincide nicely with our other word for the day, plot, which is the series of events in the story. The conflicts set up the plot. Without conflict, the plot would be bad. It would be really dull. And both of those terms come together here as I go through some appositive review. So appositives are strange and difficult, and we're going to keep at them because I think that there is something really important about mastering this skill that really makes your writing, so sophisticated and professional. So we'll do them this whole week at least. What is an appositive? What are we trying to do with these stems? Well, you're really restating or repeating some idea. And here I've got it written out. The struggle that Lewis and Clark experienced most acutely, a conflict with nature, was nonstop. So conflict with nature, that repeats this idea of the struggle. Or here, in True Grit, the plot, or the series of events in a story, so here, that appositive phrase is just a way to repeat the words, the plot. Then the sentence has to keep going because it stops here. In True Grit, the plot, or the series of events within a story, picks up speed once they face off with Quincy and Moon. Internal conflict, a struggle within oneself, is clearly at work in Rooster, who doesn't know what to make of Maddie. And so here, this last example, the appositive, a struggle within oneself, reflects internal conflict. They're the same ideas. And that's what a good appositive does, just repeats what you just said, but with more detail. So your stem for today is here, the central struggle of the book. And so already you can start thinking, oh, what is the central struggle of the book? You can say climax or conflict, because those are both good words to describe the central struggle of the book, or you can tell me exactly what it is. So Maddie is seeking Tom Chaney, right? That is the central struggle of the book. You've got to figure out how to put all those ideas together in a single sentence. If you continue to be confused, don't worry. This is difficult stuff. I'm here to help. Just ask or hang out in the async time, or then keep clicking through the slideshow and I have some more examples. So far in our plot, Maddie Ross's dad is killed by Tom Chaney. She hires Rooster to go find him, and then Maddie, Rooster, and LaBeef have some disagreements, but they end up traveling together to find Chaney. At this point in the book, they enter into dangerous territory, guns ready. The rest of class today, we read chapter 6, the first part of it, reading through page 136 today, please. You can read online here. And if you do read online, you're reading through 60%. You want to get through 60% of the book. And if you're reading on paper, it's page 136. You can stop right where Rooster says, saddle up the horses. All right, thank you.